It's the Dynasty Rookie Review. The fantasy football season, well, NFL regular season's over. And it's time to review some of these rookies. We're starting off with quarterbacks today, going through in the order that they were drafted. And we're starting off with Caleb Williams. Kind of an interesting season for him. Disappointment, I would say, overall. You see the numbers there. He was the QB 14 in total points, QB 19 in points per game, so much worse there. And kind of he was worse in the second half. He was QB 19 in points per game in the first half of the season and QB 25 in the second half. By the way, these stats are from week 17. I did not include week 18 in these stats just because that's kind of the fantasy relevant stuff. You see where he's at there. You know, the numbers, not terrible, like 3,400 yards, 19 touchdowns, over 475 rushing yards, which I don't know if people would realize. Brian, just your initial thoughts here on Caleb, his season. Are we falling a little bit victim to the expectations were high and we're penalizing him a little bit for that? Or overall, yeah, what do you think? What did you think of Caleb?
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good in quite a few games. He had a lot of rookie woes, you know. I know he took a lot of sacks.
Yep.
So obviously, like there was some criticism on holding the ball too long before, you know, and hopefully he can kind of work that out. I know we kind of hoped a little better for him, but the expectations were really high. I mean, they're always going to be under a microscope when they're taken first overall, but I think he looked good, like overall. Like I think, yeah, definitely looked like a rookie a lot of the time, but we saw some real potential there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The arm talent is there. I think the sack thing, like you said, that seems fixable. You know, that seems like something you can definitely fix. And it seems like a rookie. The offensive line was not very good. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of like falling victim to like the expectations. Oh, he has the best situation a rookie quarterback's ever had with DJ Moore and Dunze and Keenan Allen, and that's that was true. We did see a good stretch there, like the middle of the season, like killed Caleb Williams. If you're just looking at his game log from week 8 to 11, he went 4 straight weeks without throwing a touchdown. They fired their offensive coordinator, and they were doing pretty well from that point on. There was about 2-3 games before they fired their head coach, and then the offensive coordinator became the head coach. And I feel like they would have just been better off just keeping the coach until the end of the year, firing him then, and let the offensive coordinator who was having some success just focus on that. Because like we see it all the time when coordinators become head coaches, like it's just not good a lot of times. And you're like, why? They're a great offensive coordinator. Why can't you be a great coach? So it's like, well, you have 100 other things you're worrying about and not play calling. So overall, I do think it was a successful season, you know, in terms of like there's talent there. With where he's at in terms of his ranking. So he came into the season. This was on September 1st. He started as the QB6. He peaked as the QB5. He ended up, that's a typo there. He ended up as the QB11. This is according to Keep Trade Cut. He's the number 6 rookie from this class, and they say he's worth an early first. So do you think he's appropriately ranked there? He's sandwiched between Drake May and Bo Nix, the other rookies they're going to be talking about. Is that appropriate? You think it's a little bit low for him, or you think it's just right or too high?
Kind of looking at the guys in front of him, basically everyone in front of him, I would take in front of him. You know, it's kind of like the obvious guys. Like I think him starting the season at 6, like he was definitely like overvalued. Where it's like, how can you take, you know, Herbert or like Burrow, like or him over those guys? You know, like, and then when you get to like Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, it's like I really liked those guys going into the season. But I mean, Stroud was ranked all the way up at quarterback 3, I think, like for a lot of startups in this offseason, which I definitely thought was a little too high, and because I thought he was basically equivalent to Jordan Love. And we saw basically similar production from those guys for the most part. So I don't mind those guys. Like they're kind of like in that same big group. I'm kind of surprised to see Drake May in front of him.
Yeah.
That one actually really shocked me. I didn't think people were really onto him, but we'll talk to him about him when we get to him. But I think I'd still rather have what's that?
No, go ahead.
I think I'd still rather have Kyler. I'd rather have Goff in front of him. And I know it's like an age thing, but it's like it's not like Goff's an old man, you know? Like he's just playing out of his mind, and he's 30 years old. So with quarterbacks, I don't worry about the age as much. So I think he's a little high, but kind of in that general area.
Yeah, I think the underrated part of Caleb is that rushing production that he had, and I'll go back to it. 479 yards rushing through week 17. He only had 10 yards, so he finished with 489. That's like significant range. When you're getting above 400 and close to 500, like that's difference making stuff. So like I would argue you can have him over a guy like CJ Stroud, for example, who has kind of shown he's not going to give you rushing production. You know, I know Stroud had the better rookie season, but then he regressed. So it'll be interesting to see. I think there's still a lot of upside with Caleb. I think we saw the arm talent was there. And, you know, if he's going to rush for almost 30 yards a game, that's pretty good. That's pretty damn good rushing floor there. So, the next guy we don't really need to spend too much time on, Jayden Daniels, was awesome. He was the QB4 overall, QB4 in points per game. He was consistent, QB3 in the first half, QB4 in the second half. You know, he had a little bit of a down stretch there. He did get a little bit beat up. 3,500 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, ran for 864, which led quarterbacks as of week 17. I don't know how that ended up at, but that's pretty impressive. So, yeah, I mean, we can just kind of get into, because I don't think we're going to say anything besides, yeah, the guy was awesome this year. I mean, we can kind of get into the value. He started as the QB10. He peaked as the QB1, which is kind of crazy. And he finished as the QB3, basically saying he's worth 2 firsts plus. And he's the number 1 rookie in this class, according to Keep Trade Cut. Are we making the same mistake here as we did with Stroud, where we're going a little bit too high with a rookie and we got to see at least another season, or is it justified for Jayden Daniels at 3?
I think it's definitely more justified. Like he basically had Stroud's rookie season plus the rushing, you know?
Yeah.
Well, not exactly, but I mean, and we kind of knew that was the potential with him. Like the biggest knock on him was, you know, he takes big hits, you know, like he kind of runs like Josh Allen does and takes hits like he does, but he's not built like Josh Allen, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit to be said about that. Like, but I mean, he showed us everything that he could be. You know, like he had a great rookie outing. So I still say quarterback 3 is too high. Because there's, I mean, I don't know how you take him over like Burrow, Mahomes, and like he's like more on par with Jalen Hurts, I would say, you know. And honestly, that's where I think he kind of belongs. So what does that put him at? Like 7, 6? In that range. Just that rushing upside is amazing, obviously. And we saw he stayed healthy for the most part. You know, like he almost missed the game due to concussion, I think. But he ended up playing. So
yeah, I'm fine with him at QB3 just because of the rushing. And I'm just like so like in on I need rushing production for you. Like, I'm going to take these rushing guys over even a Joe Burrow. Like, just go back and look from like 2021 through 2024, who are the top 5 finishers at quarterbacks. It's literally like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and then insert a couple of guys who do it mostly with their arms. But those two guys change every year. It's Burrow or Mahomes, or it's Brady and Herbert, or it's, it just, Baker this year. Like, they're just too hard to predict year in and year out. I mean, I love Burrow. I think he's awesome. Mahomes is great, but I'll give me the rushing guys. Like, the floor is so much safer. So, again, we don't need to spend too much time. He's awesome. He's at least probably at worst like a top 5 guy. And another thing to note, like, it was Terry McLaurin and not much out. Like, he had Zach Ertz, okay, Olamide Zaccheaus, who's been like a career wide receiver 3 at best. Noah Brown, Austin Eckler. Like, it was, get another stud in there, and we could see this offense really take off. So, Drake May, interesting one. In 11 games, by the way, all these stats, he was the QB 13 in points per game, which, again, I don't know if people, in total points, I think that's actually wrong. Was he the QB 13? I might have done a typo there as well. But
yeah, I think that's, well, wait, let's see. QB 13. That's got, is that per game?
It might have been from when he took over as the starter. I think that's what I I think that's what I did there. So from when he took over as the starter, he used the QB 13. And so, you see the stats there. I think the most impressive thing is the rushing. He had 421 rushing yards in 11 games. So he was like on pace for, I think, like 700 at one point. He averaged about 38 per game. So that's about 650. I thought people were kind of sleeping on him as well until we did see the value of him. He started as the QB 17. And he got up to now the QB 10. We're looking at this a few days later. Again, like, are we good with Drake May there? And kind of, do you think it's, you mentioned, like, you were surprised he's over Caleb. Like, do you think it's justified, though, to be over Caleb because of that rushing floor?
I don't know. Like, I think they're kind of in that same category. Like, I think they showed a lot of promise, a lot of kind of rookie mistakes as well. Like, I'm just kind of looking at his stats and just kind of multiplying everything by like 1.5, so basically what, 3,400 yards passing, 600 rushing, which is great, but I think the interceptions, like, just kind of show like the growing pains of the rookie, because he had 10 in 11 games. So that's a little rough. It's not completely unexpected. Because, I mean, you just talked about what Jayden Daniels had. It's like, what did Drake May have? He had Hunter Henry and Ramondre, and that's it.
Sean Booty.
Yeah. And so, yeah, a lot of promise. I like that New England has a really high draft pick. Hopefully they can get him some help. That's not necessarily been their style. But obviously, it's been a new regime starting this year, or, the year that we just finished. So it'll be interesting to see where they go moving forward. But yeah, I think he belongs kind of right in that same category. Yeah, like I think he's kind of right there with Caleb.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I thought his season was really, really impressive, and I think people like weren't talking about it enough during the year, because if you look at like his per game stuff, it's a little bit like, he has one game where he came in. It was this last week where he threw one pass attempt. That's affecting his yards per game. He had 2 other games where he had 6 and 8 pass attempts. So if you just look at the games where he actually played, he was actually on pace for almost 3,800 passing yards, plus, the 600 rushing yards. He was just really damn good. Like, he was Jayden Daniels-esque. Like, if you look at those games where he played and started a full game, like, he was comparable with Jayden Daniels. Like, even in the rushing, it wasn't that far off, maybe 150 yards or so. So, I'm really high on him. Like I'm not going to argue anyone that wants to take him over Caleb. And like you said, who did he do it with? Like it was Keyshawn Boutte or Booty and Hunter Henry, and the 2 draft picks they made did nothing, which we'll talk about in the next video. So if someone offered you, they said, you have the 101, which is Ashton Genty this year, the Boise State running back. And they say, I'll give you Drake May for the 101. Are you just taking that? Like, let's just say you have you're not overly stacked in any area. You just have you have a quarterback or 2, you have a couple running backs. Are you taking that for Drake May, the 101?
I don't know if I would. It's kind of hard to talk about like these teams in the hypotheticals, I guess. But I guess it really just depended. Like if you don't really have any standout pieces, like I think just keeping May and just rolling, trying to get a couple of firsts for the 101 might be the better move. I don't know, just using him as a rebuild piece. Like I think that's kind of like where he belongs. Like I'm just thinking about like where he was drafted, which is basically mid first round. And I don't know if that's enough, like for me to want to just like move on from that. Like I don't know if that's enough for me to like. I don't think I would give up Drake May for the 101 necessarily.
Would you take him if someone offered you him and you have the 101? Because I don't know, like in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on like where you're at quarterback wise. Like is he going to be the difference maker kind of guy? I know we're in like a kind of a down quarterback year, so. But I guess it really depends on what's that.
I think he can be that difference maker just because of the rushing, and I don't think it's a fluke. Like he ran for 700 yards in college one year, which is really good in college because they take away sack yardage and stuff, so it's towards your rushing. So like, it's not a fluke what he did. It's not like, oh, really, Drake May? I know he doesn't seem like he's a like he is, man. He's like legit. I think he's like, I would do it. I would give up the 101. I know people love Ashton Genty. I think I would do it. I just think Drake May's that good. I really do. And just he impressed me with especially the supporting cast. So, sorry, I kind of interrupted you there. Was there something else you wanted to say?
No, I think we can move on to Bo Nix.
Yep. Well, not Bo Nix, Penix. The Panics. Since we're going in draft order, although Bo Nix is definitely deserves to be talked about next in terms of production. Real quick, if you guys are enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe. We're 42 at the time of recording, away from 1,000. Be nice to get there by the end of the month. And join our Discord. Link is in the description of the video. We'll be putting out a lot of Dynasty content this off season. Michael Penix, we did get a little bit here of a sample size. We're not going to talk about stats because there's not really much to talk about because the guy played 3 games. I thought he looked good in a couple of those games. You could see like some throws that he made where it's just like, yeah, like he could be an NFL quarterback. He's currently at the QB 17. I do think Michael Penix is a good lesson in Dynasty because everyone was talking about like, when's he going to play? It's going to be 2 years. He's going to be 27 years old and he's playing year 1 before the season's even done. Like we need to just like realize like the NFL just changes so damn much, My feelings about Penix, and then I'll let you go, is he's kind of going to be, to me, in that tier of quarterbacks where it's just like there's a lot of them. I think we're getting like a little bit of an oversaturation a little bit. I mean, we just added Bo Nix, Drake May, Jayden Daniels into this quarterback class, plus Caleb we're still high on, plus Penix, JJ McCarthy. Like, and, it's just – he's in that tier of guys where, like, I don't know if they're difference makers because he's not going to do any rushing at all. And I don't want to consistently rely on Guys who are just pure pocket passers. Again, can they have their season? Of course. But, unless you're like Burrow, Mahomes, it's hard to consistently rely on those guys. Like Goff's having a good year. Goff could throw 25 touchdowns and not be as good next year pretty easily, So although he might have 25 he has 37. That's crazy. But anyways, he just kind of falls in there. Like, I think he's a fine QB2. I don't think he's a difference-making guy. So it kind of depends on how your team's built. If you're relying on Penix to be like your QB1, I think it's probably an issue. So anything to say about Penix and his short sample size here?
Yeah. He played some good games for sure. I think, the big surprise was, like when the Falcons benched Kirk Cousins, like they were still very much in the playoff race, right down to that last week. Like they were leading the division, like.
Do you think that says more about Cousins or more about Penix?
I think it says a lot about both of them, because obviously Cousins wasn't playing well at all, since their bye week, maybe even before then. He just couldn't move, I don't think he's toast, but obviously coming back from that major injury, it just wasn't happening. Yeah, it was before the bye week too. But yeah, it just shows that the team was kind of well, they must have some level of trust in him, and they saw something during practice to make him even want to make that move. Or maybe they just kind of saw the writing on the wall, as far as even if we make the playoffs, we're just going to lose in the first round. So what does it matter?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. Sample size is too small. But yeah, I think people that drafted him, early to mid second round are happy, but I think he's a good sell now candidate, based on where he's ranked. All the guys that are in front of him, I would definitely take. I'm surprised that he's in front of Goff and Lawrence. And then when you get down to Bryce Young, that's kind of an interesting one. And even Dak, super low rated. It's I'd rather have Dak than Penix.
These are all tier down options for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I think Bryce Young versus Penix is kind of the interesting kind of one, because we saw, Bryce after the benching look like an NFL quarterback,
Yeah, for sure.
At least closer to being one, But yeah, I think I'd still rather have Bryce Young over Penix. So if you could make that deal happen, then do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm getting at with the difference maker. All these guys in that Penix and below, if you just go on keep trade guy, Goff, Lawrence, McCarthy, I'll take a chance on selling Penix, tearing down to one of those guys, picking up an extra piece. If it doesn't work out, Bryce Young, flames out again, I feel confident I'll be able to find someone else, a Darnold, a Tua, a Geno, a stat that can fill in. There's just so many quarterbacks there's not that much difference, and any one of those guys can be better than the other, in my opinion. So that's kind of that tier he's in. I agree. I think it's a little ridiculous. He's over Goff. That's purely age, and he's not even he's 5 years younger, but you'd think he'd be 10 years younger than Goff. So we're closer to 6 or 5.5, but it's small sample size. I don't think he's going to be a difference maker because he can't really run, but he does have good pieces. So Bijan and London and maybe Pitts. I don't know. JJ McCarthy, we didn't see anything from him this year. Sam Darnold played amazingly, although did look kind of bad. Did look like old Darnold last week against the Lions. And it would be interesting if they flame out in the playoffs in round 1, the Vikings, and Darnold looks bad, what the decision's going to be. Does that just change everything that he did up until week 18, which kind of sucks for him? because he was 1 win away. And honestly, I know the game was kind of a blowout. Could have been a lot closer. It could have gone just a couple different ways, and Vikings could have won that. I guess the question with McCarthy is, does Darnold hurt his value or help him? And the reason why I think it could help him is this Viking system just seems to like produce Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, Cousins last year, Sam Darnold this year, just like consistent top 12 finishes at the quarterback position, no matter who it was. So does it kind of help McCarthy a little bit, knowing that he's on this Vikings team and he's probably going to get a chance with them, and he gets to throw the ball to studs and have a good offensive coordinator? Or does it hurt? And do you think they're going to bring Darnold back potentially?
Yeah, I think we're going to find that out in these next couple of weeks, Like if he loses in the first round to, who are they playing? The Rams?
Yeah.
Yeah. If they lose to the Rams, then I don't know. Like that would definitely be the case for like, okay, like, send Darnold on his way. I mean, they drafted McCarthy as, their future kind of a thing, or the idea that he could be. And it's nice to see, Sam Darnold, like have the season that he did. Because it's amazing, the dude was running for his life, like every year is with the Jets, basically, like, and just not a whole lot there to throw to. So I'm glad he had the season that he did, but I think if he can't get him deep, like if he can't get him to like the conference championship, then I don't know what that's going to be like for him in general. But who knows, they obviously have faith in their system in general, where, where they were kind of like, all right, Darnold, like you're the man, like next man up kind of a thing.
That's a big thing, because they might avoid paying Darnold a bunch of money just for that reason. Like, we could trust our system more than the actual quarterback. So,
right.
Yeah,
and they got Daniel
I will
Jones,
say, honestly, like he needs to be picked up if he's on waiver wires. I'll say one last thing before we move on. Even if they lose first round, if Darnold plays well and they lose, I think there's still argument to keep him. But if he looks bad like he did against Detroit, then the conversations will talk. So will arise. Bo Nix was awesome this year. The QB 9 overall, QB 14 in the first half, QB 12 in the second half in terms of points per game. QB 9 in points per game, by the way, gave you a little bit of a rushing floor. 383 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. This was before week 18, so his numbers look even better with week 18 included. And you see his keep trade cut. He went from 19. He peaked at 11, ended at 12. Where would you rank him with these rookie quarterbacks? I think we can pretty clearly put him ahead of McCarthy and Penix, so we don't need to talk about that. Is he definitely still behind Caleb, May, obviously Jayden Daniels, but Caleb and May and Bo Nix? Like, how do you rank those three for obviously future dynasty value?
Yeah, I think they're all kind of, Jayden's obviously like the step above. As far as Drake May and Bo Nix and Caleb go, like he's right in there with those guys. I think now this is where you have to kind of like check yourself a little bit as far as like what our feelings were before the draft and stuff. Like we saw him get a slow start, didn't look terrible, just no touchdowns kind of a thing, interceptions a couple in the first couple of games, but like I think he operated the system really well. Like, he obviously, like, the Broncos are this year's, like what the Texans were last year, basically. And so it's amazing, like, what a good quarterback, or, a quarterback who can operate within, like, a system like Sean Payton can be, like, but I'm not trying to take anything away from him, because obviously, like, I think the numbers speak for themselves. Like, he played really well. Like, he basically had this CJ Stroud season, the rookie season.
I think it is a good like comparison with like Caleb. Obviously, week 18 for Nix is going to push that way ahead, but like Caleb and Bo Nix were not that far off production wise. But we had low expectations for Nix and high expectations for Caleb, and so that brings them a lot. That separates them a lot. Also, the records of the team, but and I feel like Caleb did get a lot of his stuff in a little bit of garbage time. But yeah, I guess I would just say like be cautious a little bit. Like we saw CJ Stroud look like holy crap, this guy's the next Mahomes or whoever, and we saw him take a step back. So just I wouldn't be surprised if that happened to Knicks next year. But he's definitely exceeded expectations, and he's the perfect. Also, he's really good. And I keep saying this when we talk about rookies. It's the NFL gets rookie quarterbacks wrong all the time. We got to kind of respect where they take them. If they say this guy's a first round pick, as much as we don't, I don't like this guy, I don't like his film, whatever. We got to kind of respect where the NFL values them and take a chance on them. Like people were letting Bo Nix fall until like the second round in 12-team leagues and stuff. And I think that was just ridiculous, So
yeah, well, I mean, it was very deep class, I mean, you had the 3 quarterbacks, the 2 receivers, Brock Bowers in front of him automatically, the 3 receivers really, because Odunze was taken before him basically every time. And then, then you start looking at like, okay, Jonathan Brooks, and there was a bunch of other first round receivers who we'll talk about on the next video. But yeah, so I mean, I understand why it happened, but yeah, like it's kind of hard to predict sometimes, especially because we didn't even know if he was going to be the starter. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we really thought Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson was going to like do anything, like if they did get the starting job, but you just never know exactly where these guys are going to, like how they're actually going to perform. I mean, like especially because of like what he did in college where he wasn't asked to do a whole lot playing with the Ducks. Was that the last 2 years or the last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
He might have been there 2 years, but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the gist of it is like, he did exactly what he needed to do. And like, he's young. He's with Sean Payton for the foreseeable future. And he can operate the system, like, so those are all things in the positive. Like, so you'd still rather have May. Did you ever say if you'd rather have May over Caleb? You're not quite there.
I wouldn't argue it. I'm kind of like it's a coin flip, to be honest, just because of May's rushing ability. I would take May and Caleb pretty easily over Nix, though.
Sure. Okay. So those 3 kind of in that order. Yeah. So I think he earned his climb up the chart for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he performed well. He definitely performed well. But yeah. The only other guy here, I didn't make a graphic for him, Spencer Rattler. I just wanted to throw him out there because he was kind of like the next QB after these guys heading into the draft. Obviously, the history of him being like the number 1 high school prospect or top high school prospect came into the game. It came into some games. The only thing I want to say about him is like he has arm talent. And we shouldn't be so quick to judge him. Like Cooper Rush, is a good example. It's like he had like the worst game in the history of the NFL week 1 his first week starting this year. And then he was actually decent after that. Like give these guys some time. He can rush the ball a little bit. Spencer Rattler, like in 4 of the 5 games he really played in, he had 25 yards or more rushing. And if they stick with Carr and they run it back with Derek Carr, I could definitely see Rattler starting more games next year. So just wanted to kind of throw him out there. Don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah. And he wasn't playing with barely anybody, when he was playing, like, the first 3 games that he started when Carr first got hurt, Olave was out 2 of those. So, yeah, like you said, give him a little time. Like, I think you're happy with what Rattler did based on where you drafted him. You know, like you
Mhm.
probably took him in like the 3rd round of your rookie draft. I know I
Yeah.
got him in like the 4th round of one of my super flex draft. I remember asking you actually, I'm like, so we're taking a dart throw on this guy. I was like, I'm coming up in the 4th round and he's still gonna be there, but and you're like, yeah, why not? Like, you just never know with these quarterbacks. So
I mean, Sam Howell got a whole freaking season, so Rattler, I definitely could at some point. But yeah, no one else really to talk about. I know people are gonna like fan cult following Joe Milton, but I'm not gonna talk about him yet. So we will finish
Jordan
there.
Travis.
Yeah. He doesn't have the arm talent, in my opinion. At least Rattler has the arm talent. So but yeah, we'll finish there. We'll be back talking about all the other positions. So make sure to, again, like and subscribe, help us get to 1,000. And we will see you all in the next